And now the day has come upon us once more. It's spoopy time, y'all. There ain't a better time for kids out there to truly indulge in candy than Halloween. The time of year for costumes, candy, and creeps. Screw Christmas, this is the GOAT holiday. I mean, who doesn't love Halloween? And Halloween is incredibly popular, standing alongside holidays like Christmas. But unlike Christmas, Halloween has existed in its current form from the beginning. It feels like Halloween is a core part of not just America, but every culture. Dia de los Muertos, Halloween, All Saints' Day. Halloween is truly universal, and everybody celebrates it in one way or another. So when did it start? Halloween is so old and so deeply ingrained in culture that its origins aren't really widely known. And for such an important holiday, it's important to know when it began, where it originated, and why we even do it in the first place. What is Halloween? I want to look into it. So what better story to tell this season than the true and complete history of All Hallows' Eve, or Halloween. Our story begins 5,000 years ago, in Ireland, centered on the pagans. And they celebrated many festivals, but one was more important than the rest. The festival of Samhain. For 3 days, the villages would join together for a ritual that would decide their future, but in a much more lighthearted way than one might think. Of course, this festival was the first iteration of Halloween. And this festival featured a lot of the famous things we know from Halloween, but for a different reason. They would carve out old vegetables, lighting them, and placing them around the villages. Remind you of anything? They would dress in crazy extravagant outfits. They would light bonfires, sitting around them. They even went trick-or-treating, or as it was called back then, guising. It was slightly different, with people going to houses and singing and getting baked goods in exchange, but still very similar. And it was all to welcome the changing of the seasons, from summer to fall. They did have other festivals relating to the changing of seasons, but Samhain was viewed as the most important, because the season change it was made for was the most integral to their lives. In fact, Samhain, translated from Irish to English, means summer's end. And this is actually where the orange and black color scheme came from the colors the nature around them would turn to. That's how ingrained the fall season is with Samhain. But one might ask, why do they care so much about the simple changing of weather? Well, back then, it was so much different. During that period, the world around them was shifting into a harsher landscape, where everything wanted to kill you. When it went from bright sunny days of perfect weather to cold dead nights where the worst beasts would come out. They didn't have waterproof houses. They didn't have good coats. They didn't have any of the amenities we now take for granted. They were in an uncontrollable world where the changing of seasons could decide your very existence. Now, snow is viewed as no more than a backdrop. But back then, it was a beast overcoming their world, and they just had to survive it. So when seasons would change, absolutely nothing was more important than it. The only thing they could do was to spiritually control these seasons, celebrate them, and worship them, to hopefully shift it from being so deadly. But there was an even deeper reason for this entire festival. As the mythology tells, they believed that October 31st wasn't just the changing of seasons, but the changing of the real to the magical and spiritual. It's said that this day was a time of year where the barrier between our realm and the spiritual realm was at its thinnest. All it would take would be one wrong move, and the spirits would take you. A period where the unimaginable would come to life. When magic would flourish. When witches would emerge with no fear. When the Aussie, the Irish version of elves, would pace about. And when the spirits and ghosts of those deceased would return to the world of the living. They made bonfires to ward off any creatures of the night. They made these vegetable lanterns to farther avert the spirits, setting them up across town at every house, effectively as booby traps. They dressed up in these costumes to confuse any monsters or spirits visiting. Sometimes they would even dress up as the demons themselves, as one big trick. They went trick-or-treating because, as they believed, they must prove their strength to the spirits that have emerged, and they do that by proving themselves to townsfolk. As they put it, the spirits would gain more respect for you the more houses you succeeded at getting treats from. In modern day, we tend to shy away from the supernatural, and understandably so, as science only features the most concrete physical evidence, and as the name would imply, spiritualism is more spiritual. But humanity and life is far more than the concrete. There is nuance. There are things we can't see but are still there. This is what many people throughout all cultures and throughout all of history have believed. Ghosts and demons and other supernatural things of the like weren't viewed as novelties or cult-like beliefs. Back then, they weren't taboo. They were just an everyday part of life, alongside tending to the crops or talking with friends. And when summer turns to fall, when the weather gets so inhospitable, therefore becoming more deadly, and the trees and plants around them begin to die, they start to think about the people that have already died, the ones they've lost. This changing of seasons brought death upon the world, and it shall not be disrespected. It should be celebrated to face this threat, and Samhain served that purpose.
Yes, Halloween is fun.